Hi, I'm Heather, a certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, and have my BS in exercise science and behavioral coaching from Arizona State University. I currently live in Oregon with my 3 kids, who I will reference often.
And I'm Britt, a former Division I collegiate athlete turned recreational triathlete and fitness instructor. I have a degree in exercise biology from UC Davis, and I currently live in Belgium with my husband and 4 kids.
Together, we're best friends wanting to bring the world of health and fitness back to a more grounded and balanced place that's accessible to everyone.
Each episode, we're going to talk about ways to live out a well-rounded and healthy life that makes sense in today's modern, busy world. We'll cover topics related to exercise, nutrition, mindset, mental health, competition, and so much more.
So sit back,
Sign up,
and let's get ready to race to wellness.
What'd you eat for breakfast?
I ate avocado toast with eggs and a lot of bacon.
Sounds so good. Minus the bacon
It's
because
so
I don't like
good.
bacon, but
What? I eat bacon just about every day. And usually when I tell people that, they're like, what about your cholesterol? And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Not even. Nope. The amount, well, and I'm like, cholesterol is such a fascinating thing. Same thing with eggs. When I tell people that, like, if I have scrambled eggs or something, I have four eggs in the morning with my bagel and then whatever else I eat. Um, but yeah, people get all up in, you eat 4 eggs per day. What about your cholesterol? And it's fascinating because, like, the research shows that your cholesterol is really only impacted if you're also eating trans fats, and like there's something that goes along with it, or if you also have like another, like diabetes or any of that kind of stuff, that's when your cholesterol is really can be more impacted. But overall, like if you're eating a balanced diet and staying active, it's not that big of a deal.
yeah. Eggs are funny
Yeah.
too because they've been the like scapegoat of everything. Because
Yeah.
first they're good for you, then they're not good for you. Now they're good
Yeah.
for you, they're really bad for you.
Yeah, right. Eat them raw. Don't eat them raw. Eat them. You
Yeah.
have to wash your eggs. You don't have to wash your eggs. Like there's
Refrigerate
so
them.
many.
Don't refrigerate them.
Yeah, and I'm
I
like,
guess
it's
that's in
all
America versus other parts of the world
versus
thing.
other countries. Well, or like farm fresh. Like I get farm
Yeah,
fresh eggs, and
that's
so I
true.
don't have to. Yeah, I don't have to put them in the fridge, which is so nice. I'm like, there's almost nothing that you need like a cold egg, or I should say, there's almost nothing in my life that I need a cold egg for, like as far as like baking or cooking or any of that kind of stuff. And so just having them already at room temperature is awesome. It's way better.
I can't think of a single thing that would require your egg to be cold.
Right? I was like, if you're making
So
meringues, it's warm. If it's like, because it's the viscosity of it is just different. So,
yeah.
well, I love me some eggs. My friend, a friend of mine, he eats, I think he said he eats like 6 eggs for breakfast. And then he puts 4 raw eggs in his protein smoothie in the morning and eats that every day. And I'm like,
That seems
if it
like
works
so
for
many
you,
eggs.
it's a lot of eggs.
Like
I was
you'd be
like, but he's a
buying a
big
dozen
dude. Like
eggs
he's trying to.
basically every day.
Yeah, he said 10 eggs is what he eats every day. I'm like, as expensive as they were, whew, that's a whole different topic. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff. Eggs. I just, you know what I find with my food, like thinking about the way that I eat, is that I mostly, especially because I'm lifting a lot, I'm doing a lot of exercise right now. Like literally, I lift 5 days a week and then I teach yoga 4 days a week. I Tuesday was my first day of not working out in like 12 days in a row. And I was like,
Yeah.
girl, why are you hurting? Like my knees hurt, my shoulders were achy, like everything was just like tired and sore. And I was like, I should take a day off. And then I did. And then yesterday I lifted really well. Like I was really fluid and I could get heavy, and it didn't like feel heavy. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, so because I'm doing that amount of exercise, honestly, I'm not counting calories at all. I'm not thinking about carbohydrates or fats very much. I'm focusing on my protein. And like, as long as my body feels good, then that's how I'm kind of managing what I eat right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been a person to like follow a diet. Like that's not,
Yeah.
I just think that like eating good food that feels good in your body, like I pay attention to how my body feels after I eat, before I eat, while I'm in a like cycle of what I'm eating. Cause I'm like, I also get pretty like hyper fixated on specific meals. And I'll be like, I'm eating this every day from now until forever, until there's one day where suddenly I hate it. So yeah.
I'm just curious, like, if you think about what you've been eating, can
Mhm.
you like off the top of your head pinpoint like percentage wise, like, oh, I eat roughly like this amount of protein and this amount of carbs or whatever?
I couldn't do carbs and fats, but protein, I shoot for between 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. 30 if I split it between 4 meals in the day, or 40 if I split it between three. So it depends on like what I have going on during the day. If I have a super busy
Yeah.
day where I know I'm not going to be able to stop and eat in the middle of it, where I have like stretches of time where I'm really busy, then I'll break it up like into bigger meals. But yeah, I just focus on 30 to 40 grams of protein. It's a little bit high, but because I'm doing 5 days of lifting and four
Yeah.
days of yoga, like that's not, it's not wild. It's not out of proportion.
I don't think that that's that high either.
No, I'm like, I think they say shoot for like 30 grams of protein if you're working on adding muscle per three meals a day. So it's just an additional 30 to 40 grams, depending.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not too bad. How do you eat? Like, what do you think about when you're
Um, well, I guess it's different right now because I'm not like heavily training at all or doing anything
yeah.
like that. So when I was training a lot harder, I would eat very protein heavy breakfast with some carbs. So it was protein bar, blueberries, super delicious chocolate milk. Lunchtime, it was a hit or miss on lunch because I would work a lot through lunch. Like I had a
Mm-hmm.
meeting scheduled, or I could only meet with someone during this time. And so my lunch hour got moved around a lot. And so sometimes it would be a sandwich, and sometimes it would be a really quick run upstairs, microwave whatever the leftovers were from dinner last night and bring it back to my computer. Like
Yeah.
it was whatever was really easy to make. And then when I would get off of work, I usually I love pistachios. And so I would grab like a portion of pistachio nuts, nosh on
Mm-hmm.
those. I love beef jerky. I would nosh on those. I feel like I was very high protein in some of my stuff, but like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wasn't like trying to be.
Yeah.
Because then I get into the more carbs of after like this little snack. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then I would grab carb heavy stuff. So granola bars, um, chips a lot of times, or crackers.
Mm-hmm.
But I would grab more of a carb heavy like snack. And then I would have my pre workout as well that has caffeine with it. Go for my run, come back. If I needed to, I would grab another snack and
Mm-hmm.
then do my strength or mobility work. And then right after I would work out, I would grab my protein shake. And then whatever dinner was usually a very balanced mix of fats, carbs, proteins.
Mm.
Usually, it usually tended to be much less protein heavy at
Mm-hmm.
nighttime and more fats and carb heavy at nighttime
Yeah.
because I literally just drank a protein shake like 45 minutes before. I didn't need
Yeah.
any extra protein. And then dessert, because dessert is fucking delicious.
Dessert.
I would either
Yes.
have actual dessert because cake,
Yeah.
or there's a company that does protein bars that I really like and they taste like candy bars, but they made puffs, which are like their version of like their marshmallow ones. And so they're proteiny
Oh,
marshmallows and they're so good. And
yum.
so I would have
That
one of
sounds
those for dessert.
delicious.
So I guess I did
Mm.
have quite a bit of protein, but but the point
Yeah,
is that
but
I would have a giant chunk in the middle where I had a lot more carbs and things and no protein around that.
well, and yours was like broken up. The gist of what I just got from that was that yours was much more broken up throughout the day,
Yeah.
whereas my meals are much more, it's a meal, like a whole meal,
Yeah.
and I don't snack in between.
I snack like
Like,
crazy.
yeah, I do not snack at all. The closest I would say that I get to a snack is probably like my banana before I go work
Mm,
out. That's it. Like I
yeah.
eat my meal and then that's it. And I'm sustained. But again,
Yeah.
that's the difference between high protein, because your protein, while you did have a good amount of protein throughout your entire day, it was broken up into smaller pieces along the way.
Much smaller
Whereas
pieces.
mine is, yeah, I was like, whereas mine is protein dense. So I'll eat
Yeah.
30 to 40 grams of protein at one sitting. And then I'm not hungry for hours, like a lot of hours. Now that my body is used to that, I don't have the cravings in between, and I don't want to eat anything.
Yeah, literally, like
Yeah.
I think my breakfast was maybe 25 grams of protein in it,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that would carry me through for a while of like I don't feel like I need to go eat.
Yeah.
But then I would have like little snacks of like, oh, I'm gonna grab like a small handful, like four, literally like 4 chips. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I somehow can do this.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
as long as you don't bring the bag with you, I can literally just go grab a tiny little bit and be fine and just leave. I can
Yeah.
put the cookies in the cabinet and grab one out and leave and not go back
Yeah.
for more.
Not
There
go
are other
back.
people that live in
We've
this
talked
house that
about
cannot
that.
do that.
Other people. There's one other person living in that house with you. I love it.
They don't know this.
It's so good. Maybe it's the dog. The dog.
The
can't
dog
go back.
definitely couldn't do it.
Oh my gosh. You and I have had this conversation of like, if food is out of sight, it's out of mind. If it's in the cupboard, it doesn't exist to me. It just doesn't.
Yeah, it does not. I can literally forget about it for months and then all of a sudden be like, I have Oreos in here. Yeah.
Right? Oh, those are bad. Yeah, I do that all the time. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you're training, like each week is kind of getting progressively more. So did you adjust like week by week when you were training for races and stuff? Or was it pretty consistent?
I was usually pretty consistent with regular eating
Okay.
of like meals. Where I would adjust would be like eating during training.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't count the pre-workout and post-workout as regular meals.
Oh, okay.
They're not regular
So
meals.
like they don't count. Yeah. So it's like
yeah.
things. So for me, like pre-workout is like a banana or a piece of fruit or something, and then afterwards is like something similar. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, usually. So like for me, I used to do like a granola bar and maybe some fruit with whatever pre-workout I was drinking for my pre-workout. Yeah. And then post-workout, it was always protein shake. And then I don't think I had fruit. I should have had fruit with it, but I didn't really. But I would bring with me like something for during. Like if I was going on a longer run or something, I would bring stuff with me. So like I used to do a lot of scratch, which is just a company.
Oh, okay. I was like,
so for people who do longer distance stuff, like they would know what scratch is. But
Okay.
So I did a lot of scratch, so like scratch bars, or sometimes I would do power bars because like that's what I had gotten as swag from whatever race, and so I had a bajillion of them, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll do power bar branded stuff now.
Got it.
Or I would do a lot of the gummies, like if you have seen like the gummy like candy stuff that people bring with them on stuff.
Yeah.
Again,
I used to eat gummy bears when I did my half marathons. That was a quick. Somebody made fun of me the other day. They were like sweaty gummy bears because I literally just had them in a Ziploc bag and tucked them into my bra. Yeah, because I was like, I don't want to wear a belt. It's a whole different. You have to train with it and the whole thing. And it was like, it's too much. It's too much for me. Guys, I hate running. I'm just being really honest with you that I hate it so much. And I think it's actually more of like a mental block that I have right now that I need to overcome it actually, probably by doing some running, not like as a race or as part of a workout,
right
but just
now
like a leisurely
such a part of your identity.
That's true. It's like Heather hates running. You and I were talking about this briefly about like how funny would it be if I was like secretly running on my own and not telling anybody, but complaining my ass off the whole time, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I bust out a 20 miler or whatever. Who knows? Like, it would be funny.
Anywho,
I think that actually the way that we just talked about that was really cool because you and I train for very different things, like running versus
and very
training like
way. Like you're very fast and explosive, and I'm more just like I'm gonna go out nice and leisurely.
I do not feel fast and explosive. I feel like a butterball is what I feel like all the time. I'm like, why am I running so slow? That's what I feel like.
That was funny. Why is this taking so long?
So long. Oh my gosh. This morning at CrossFit, we were supposed to run and I jumped on the rower instead. And I thought because it was a partner WOD that we were cutting the distance in half. So she was doing half and I was doing half. So I did my 300 meters on the row and was like, boom, I'm done. And then jumped over on the bar. And they were like, you did 600 meters already? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, we're not splitting that part. We're splitting the strength part of the deadlifts. And I was like, no. So I had to walk back over and get back on the rower and finish that part out. Yeah, so dumb.
Which is probably why your partner was like, why don't you just run?
Yeah, just run, girl. I'm like,
it would take you so much less time.
Right. And there's other people out there. I'm like, I'm so dramatic. Just ridiculous.
But it's interesting too, because like you were saying though, because of the way that we train very differently, because we exercise very differently, we eat very differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm interested to see when I come to Belgium. I was thinking about this actually of like, I tend to not feel well on vacations because my eating is not the same as it is at home. And so I have to like modify and remind myself of that. Like when I went to France, I was very like fatigued because we were doing so much walking, which is not my norm. I don't typically like, I would be hard pressed probably to get 10,000 steps in a day. I do a lot more just standing and then like movement, but not like all out walking. And so that much walking in a day, like I was fatigued and I had not eaten to prepare for that. Not at all.
Which I am completely the opposite. Like we just went to London and we walked everywhere and did all that, and walking is totally fine for me. Like,
oh, I love that. I literally had like a foot injury when I came back. My heel of my foot hurt for months after I came back from France because it was so much walking. And I don't know if you know this, French people walk fast. I'm like, yo, why are we running everywhere?
We got places to be.
Yeah. I'm like, it wasn't until like the last 2 days that they were like, oh, I guess we could ride the bike through Paris. And I'm like, that would be awesome. Like, I could do that.
I'd much rather do that.
Much rather, please. I love it.
Anyway,
we did eat lots of carbs though. I will say that I ate so much bread when I was in France. It was delightful. It was. Every morning I would wake up and there would be like croissants on the table because they had gone out and gotten them. It was just a different lifestyle, just different. Yep.
Yeah. Well, because like, well, I guess not just in France and that, but like when your lifestyle is built more around walking, running, biking everywhere, like getting in lots of mileage, not necessarily really difficult mileage, but like just lots of it, our bodies tend to eat differently because we don't need to be using our muscles to the point where they're getting all those little micro tears and like building up more strength. And so all they're wanting is like, I just need a little bit more energy. How do I get that quickly? Carbs.
Give me the carbs.
Give me the carbs.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like thinking about the difference between a European lifestyle versus an American lifestyle. And Europeans tend to be much more just naturally active in their day-to-day lives, where Americans are much more sedentary. And then thinking about like gym culture, I feel like gym culture is much stronger in American culture versus in Europe. And I'm like, but we also, I feel like there's a shift that's happening in American culture a lot in social media. I've been hearing about talking about NEAT up, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, but that's just the idea of like taking the stairs instead of taking an elevator and doing things that are more naturally active in your day-to-day, and then taking walks in the evenings, that kind of stuff. I feel like there's not a lot, but there are social media influencers that are talking about that, which is great. I love that. I love hearing that.
Well, it's a much better way to help stabilize your blood sugars and things, of like taking a walk after your meal as opposed to doing your meal and then sitting down and watching TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So we could go through some of the more common diet plans that people tend to either fall into because that's how they eat naturally, because that's just what they're doing, or because they're following it for either aesthetic
Yeah.
reasons or because they feel like they need to or makes their body feel better, whatever the reason why they're following it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting thinking about reasons that people follow diet plans and why they choose them. And like when you're doing exercise, like you and I have just talked about doing exercise, and we tailor our food so that it matches with the work that we're doing. So we have energy for that. And I feel like that's a very positive way to view food and diet and exercise. And I feel like a lot of times there's kind of this negative connotation with a diet, because people are oftentimes trying to lose weight quickly or change their appearance in some way. And so that's where they're focusing on, rather than focusing on fueling their body, which is a conversation we've had before about fueling your workout, not working out to fuel. But yeah.
Well, I feel like we've changed the word diet to mean that you need to be eating less and eating only specific things. We've associated diet with like diet foods of this is going to make you lose weight, or this is going to help you to tone up your body while slimming down. And it's like, well, the word diet doesn't just mean losing weight. It's literally just this is the food that you're eating.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that with my kids, I find myself very wary of using the word diet when I'm talking to them about the foods that they eat, because I never want them to have a diet mindset like growing up. I want them to feel abundance in the foods that they eat, and that they're fueling their bodies, and that they're working toward having energy for the activities that they do. And I never want them to have that like negative. I'm like, I hate using the word negative, but it's a negative headspace. It can be.
Yeah.
Because I think about like my experiences growing up of my mom was a yo-yo dieter, I would say. And then like I remember my grandma being on a grapefruit and bacon diet at some point. Like there's all sorts of weirdness out there that people follow. It works for people. She lost a bunch of weight while she was on it. But I remember having those like understanding that my aunts and my mom were all trying to lose weight all the time for their entire lifetime. And I think that that's part of why I rail against it so hard and move toward the activity side of it rather than thinking about the food, because I just remember always feeling that sense of stress from them about the food that they were eating, and I didn't want that in my life. Yeah.
Well, we shouldn't have to feel like we're not allowed to eat something because it will, I don't know, make us look fat, or just there shouldn't be this huge negative reason for eating food. Yes, maybe we don't choose to eat the food because it makes us feel bad because we're kind of intolerant to dairy. So maybe we don't want that whole upset stomach and everything going on. Or in your instance, caffeine tends to not do well in your body. So maybe don't eat the stuff with high form parts of caffeine. So lots of teas are out and chocolates out and coffee's out and
yeah, random things are out. I didn't realize how much I like chocolate ice cream until I can no longer have chocolate ice cream, and suddenly it's all I want all the time. But literally, like I have it, and then for 2 days I just feel I feel irritable. That's the biggest thing. I'm like, I feel terrible in my body also, but the irritability after I have caffeine is the part where I'm like, I can't function in life and be annoyed with everybody all the time.
yeah.
And and I wonder actually how often people have that experience in their life. Like there are people, where they're just always annoyed. And I'm like, I wonder what your eating is like. I wonder what your sleeping is like. I wonder what your XYZ, all of these different things that impact our health. I wonder what those things in your life are like. All right, carrying on. Diet plans. Yeah.
I feel like we should talk about keto, high protein, and plant-based maybe.
Okay.
And then like because I don't know that anybody has like a high carb diet, quote unquote, but we use it more for like training purposes.
Training. Yeah, I was
Because if
gonna
you're
say like,
doing intense long distance stuff, you're going to be eating more carbs than you are other
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. It makes me think of like Michael Phelps. So I watched this, like, what was it? You know how they have those videos or whatever of like not influencers, but like social media people that are, I'm gonna eat his diet for one whole day or whatever it was. And so they did his diet from when he was like young and training. And it was like he would eat 2 large pizzas at
Yeah.
lunchtime, as well as like a pound of pasta. And it was wild the amount of food that he was eating. And
Yep.
it was interesting. They were talking about when he was young versus now that he's older and how he eats and eats more healthy carbs, which is great. But yeah, the amount of food you have to eat is wild
Yeah.
when you're training at those sort of levels.
Or like the amount of food, because I've seen it before for like The Rock. Every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
like YouTube or somebody will put up the thing of like what The Rock eats. And it's
Yeah.
like he still trains like 2 hours a day or whatever because you have to keep that physique. And then
Yeah.
it's like, this is everything he eats. And it's like, holy geez, how much food can you
Yeah.
eat in a day?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's an interview with Emily Blunt where she talks about The Rock when they were doing Jungle Cruise
Oh,
together.
yeah.
And she said, you'll just be standing there with him and he'll pull out like a giant bowl of chicken and just
Yeah.
stand there
And
and
just
eat
eat the
chicken and
chicken.
rice. Yeah. Just a whole chicken standing there next to you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because I think they also did his shooting around his training. So like
Yeah.
he needs to train for 2 hours. So we can't shoot any of his stuff during his training time. So we need to plan around that. But obviously he then needs to fuel at random
Mm-hmm.
times.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I follow him on social media and he posts his like when he's doing his workouts and stuff and the times that he's doing them. And some of them it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. He's like, I just got
Yeah.
home and I've got to do my training. So and I admire that sort of dedication to your work. I yeah, I really do. I'm like, I wish I had
Yeah.
something like not positive to say about it so that it would be more juicy, but honestly. I
Well,
admire
like
people that are willing to put in that more much dedication.
because it's also that's his livelihood, that's his brand, that is
Mm-hmm.
who he is. He can't just like you and me. It's fine. I got home at 2 a.m. I can take the day off. I don't need to train today. Like it'll be
Mm-hmm.
fine. But no, The Rock needs to look a certain way. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, to get there, you need to be very strict on all of your requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah, it gets results,
wonder
but
if
oh,
I wonder if hugging him is like hugging a rock because he's so muscly.
because he's so
That's what I wonder.
muscular. Just,
Yeah, I'm
ow,
like, he
ow.
really is a rock. Oh my gosh.
I
Shoot.
love it. I love The
Yeah,
Rock though.
me too. I love him.
Maybe we talk high protein diets first, because that's kind of where
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. I love me some protein. I will tell you that if you are transitioning as a person who is thinking about transitioning to a high protein diet, those first couple weeks of eating that much protein is rough. It does not feel good when your body is used to breaking down quick carbohydrates, maybe processed foods, lots of fruit, that kind of stuff. When you transition to high protein foods, it's much more dense and your gut takes a little while to get used to it. Like it
Yeah.
literally feels bloated, you feel heavy, you feel sluggish. And then once your body gets used to that, because literally, like if you think about the acidity of our stomachs, like our bodies get used to breaking down certain foods and our intestines get used to breaking down certain foods. And so when you change that, your body has to adjust to it. And
Mm-hmm.
it takes a couple weeks and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It does not feel great.
Mm-hmm. I remember many, many years ago when my mom started drinking a protein shake, like just
Mm-hmm.
one protein shake once a day.
Yeah.
And she stopped doing it because she was like, nope, this is not for me. because of what you were saying. Like it made her feel bloated, it made her feel
Mm-hmm.
constipated, it made her all this stuff. And she's like, nope, will not
Yeah.
be continuing this.
Yeah. If you're not mentally prepared for that, like it feels like the opposite of what you're trying to do in your body.
Yeah.
And what I have found is that tossing in a giant salad somewhere in my day, still having protein, so still having chicken as part of it, or deli meat or something, whatever you want to toss in there, a steak salad, that kind of stuff, still having your protein, but making it, instead of having carbohydrates along with it, like rice or potatoes or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
instead having a huge salad with lots of vegetables. The fiber from that
Yes.
helps immensely. Yeah.
A lot. The
Without,
fiber
yeah,
is
a
key.
lot. It's key. I was like, because otherwise, that you just it could be bad.
You aren't going to move
I
any of that out without the fiber.
no. Well, and I had the opposite reaction this time around. So I had been. I'm going to be super honest here, and this is a little bit of a I don't know. I was eating
TMI,
like
guys, TMI.
TMI. I was eating like ice cream for lunch, and then I was having ice cream as a snack, and then I was eating cake with dinner or cookies or whatever it was. And then I was like, okay, Heather, this is getting bad. I felt like because I was doing all this training and all that kind of stuff, I was doing fine. I was like, it's fine. You can eat all whatever you want. But I wasn't feeling good in my body. So then I transitioned to eating the high protein, and I did it. Boom, here's day one. No, like it was like going cold turkey on this stuff. And I was so sick for like 5 days. I was sick, 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 sick. Everything came out of every which way of my body. And I couldn't function as a person and I felt awful. And then now I'm fine. But those first few days are
Mm-hmm.
it was awful, 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 awful. And you know what? And you still have to go about your life. It wasn't like I could take 5 days off. So I'm out there training people and dealing with that.
Hang on, guys. I need to move to the corner because toot toot.
Oh my gosh. Woo, it's so good.
I like it. That's funny.
Oh, I like it too. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah. So high protein diets.
High protein. Yep.
Yeah. So it is essentially what it is where the majority of your food is coming from protein, whether it's from meats or plant-based proteins.
Mm-hmm.
Like the majority of your food is coming from a protein base.
Mm-hmm.
People who tend to like these a lot more are those who are doing more strength-based activities like
Mm-hmm.
CrossFit or weightlifting. Those power-based activities that really need your muscles to grow and be
Mm-hmm.
in that strength environment of we need to lift heavy shit. Like these diets
Mm-hmm.
tend to benefit them a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we talk about there's a couple of different like high protein diets that we hear about often
Mm-hmm.
in social media and people are raving about. And there's some benefits, there's some pros, there's cons, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So the two that I'm aware of are keto, which is ketogenic diet, and then paleo. I tend to lean toward, if I were to choose between the two of those to follow, I would choose paleo, because it does allow for some carbs in your diet.
It allows for a
Yeah,
lot more carbs in your diet.
a lot more. I was gonna say keto is zero carbs. You get none of those bad boys. And then paleo is you can have them, but very specific.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, before we even go into it, I don't understand how people can be keto.
I don't either. I feel like I would be in such a brain fog all the time
Yeah.
because your brain, the food that your brain eats is carbohydrates. Like it's glucose. Your brain needs glucose.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not eating carbs and you're not eating any sugars, you're not eating processed foods, you're not eating I'm like so you're just eating proteins and fats for keto. What's feeding your brain? And I know like how the body works. It ends up breaking down proteins and da 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 so that it'll feed the brain. But yeah, it's a much slower process
Yeah.
and much harder for your body.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
it's a lot less flexible, obviously, because you can only have fats and proteins. And so your body then, to really be in true keto, your
Mm-hmm.
body then can only use these types of fuel to give
Mm-hmm.
itself energy, which to me seems like it would be something that would be just like too like fixed for your body. Like it doesn't give it any
Mm-hmm.
options of a, well, what if something happens? Because as we know, our bodies are complex and complicated.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then a lot like keto, I think that when it was originally created, we'll say that sort of a diet, it was for people with type 1 diabetes to follow because their body does not have the ability to produce insulin, which is the hormone that is responsible for glucose regulation in the bloodstream. So when you have a lot of glucose, insulin is released so that it can be processed. Um, so if you don't have the ability to produce insulin, then any glucose in your body is going to create reactions of a sort because you can't regulate that. So keto is great for people that have type 1 diabetes because it keeps
Yeah.
you're not taking in glucose and so you're not needing to regulate it.
Yeah. I just feel like I hate on keto a lot. I just hate
I
see,
do too.
I hate on it a lot because the people I know who follow it
Mhm.
don't necessarily need to follow it for any sort of like medical reason. They're doing
Mhm.
it because that's how they choose to eat. And a lot of those people are, I mean, you'll find these people in all sorts of diet weight like plans and things, but they're very much like judgy.
Mhm. Yes.
They judge the ones I know. They judge the crap out of you for like, I ordered pasta and they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna eat all that? And I'm
You're
like,
gonna eat
yeah, I'm
that.
freaking
Mhm.
gonna eat all this.
Yes, I agree. I think the other thing is, so there was a point in my life when I was, I'll call it whole food plant based rather than saying vegan. And the reason that I say that is because of I didn't choose the lifestyle, so things like leather didn't bother me and honey and etc. So, but aside from that, I also didn't talk about being whole food plant based because if I wanted to have a cheeseburger, I was going to have a cheeseburger. And I didn't want people to be like, I thought you were vegan. I'd have to be like, yeah, but I do whatever the fuck I want. Like
Yeah.
that's yeah, because that judgment is a real thing. It's a very real
Hmm.
thing. Yeah.
Keto can be good for you
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing it properly, and if you're doing it, especially if you're doing it for any sort of medical reason or health reason,
Mm-hmm.
specifically needing to be on a
Yeah.
diet that follows that. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
very strict way of eating and can be
Yeah.
really difficult for if you are going out with friends and family to a
Yeah.
restaurant or
A
something
restaurant.
and can't eat any carbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say, the places that I've seen or the people that I've seen have success with being on a keto diet are people who are looking for like faster weight loss. If that
Mm-hmm.
is their focus, then it can be great for that because if your body is not taking in carbs, of course it's going to start pulling from energy stores elsewhere in your body so that it has glucose because that's stored in fat cells and within our muscles, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be good for that. But I would be remiss if we did not talk about ketoacidosis a little bit, which is a syndrome that can come up from keto. As you're breaking down proteins for energy sources, and your muscles can start to break down during that process. And what happens is that then your blood becomes very acidic, which can be bad for you. Very, very, very bad.
Very bad for
Yeah,
you.
very bad. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm not super knowledgeable on how ketoacidosis actually takes place in the body, so I don't want to overstep my bounds there, but it's something that I am very aware of when I'm talking to people about it, is that that is a possibility of something that could happen if you're on it for a long time, and just being aware of what the like signs and symptoms and that kind of stuff are.
So the other protein high diet that is mentioned a lot, there are others, but these are the two we're choosing to talk about today,
Mm-hmm.
is paleo.
Yeah.
I feel like paleo had a huge surgence like 5 years ago.
I agree. I think it was a little bit further back because 5 years ago was just like a year before the
Hang on.
pandemic started. How
Oh,
weird is
that's
that?
okay. Yeah, you're sure. Yes. 5 years before the pandemic, then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm grabbing my one book and I'll show you the title of it in a minute, but I wanted to see the copyright of it. Yeah, okay, this tracks because it's 2013 of the copyright of this book. So 5 years
Cute.
before the pandemic ish. Ish. I guess
Yeah.
that's a little more.
5 years before. Yeah. I
But
was
when
like,
the
that
book was
feels.
published,
Mhm.
okay, the book is
Yes.
called Nom
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 Paleo.
paleo. Cute. I love that.
But yeah, I feel like paleo. So I guess 5 years before the pandemic. So
Hmm.
2015, that's in my brain where I can like see all of my social media talking about paleo.
Hmm. Yeah. Agreed. And people who like did paleo, they loved it. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't have, I wouldn't say that I have too many faults with the paleo diet. Like for me, because I tried it for a little while and it's again, it's a lot of, I wouldn't say restriction, but
Mm-hmm.
you just have to adjust. So it's things like you don't use olive oil or canola oil or any of those oils, and you use coconut oil instead. And then there's a lot of spices that you use, and you don't eat legumes. And there's a number of other things that are not on the list of like approved items that you can eat. The foods that you can eat are delicious. So if you love them and the way of cooking works for you, I think it's great. But
So for
yeah.
people who don't have a clue as to what we're talking about for a paleo diet, the purpose behind it was it is not was because it's still a thing
Hmm.
is that the foods that you eat are foods that early human beings would have been eating as well, so like meats and fish and vegetables and fruits,
Hmm.
but not sugary donuts or
Hmm.
if you think of a caveman,
Hmm.
anything
That's
that you
exactly what I was
picture a
going to say.
caveman eating, good to go. But unfortunately, foods that you can't picture a caveman eating, probably not on the list of foods that you can eat.
Hmm. Yeah, things
Not
like
a lot of
flours,
cheeses.
grains, cheeses. Yeah, I think dairy is completely off the
Yeah,
list. Yeah, it's.
dairy, most grains, honestly, and
Hmm.
all processed foods are gone.
Yeah.
Wine, bye bye, wine.
Bye bye wine. Yeah.
No.
It's a really good diet for people that maybe have allergies also.
Yeah,
It works really well for them because it cuts out a lot of those, the processed foods, and then like the big five
yeah.
allergens. It cuts those out, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's more flexible than what we had just been talking about of a keto diet because it
Hmm.
allows you to eat all of the foods of carbs, fats, and protein,
Hmm.
but it makes it more simple, I guess. It doesn't necessarily
Hmm.
eliminate, it just makes it simple food as opposed to food that you've had to refine more to make dairy
Hmm.
or bread.
Yeah. The thing that I like about the paleo diet when I think about like going to the grocery store is it makes it really easy. You're like, would my caveman ancestor have eaten this? Yep. I'm going to put it in my basket. And then walking down the brightly colored aisles, it's nope, none of this is in here. And
Yeah.
then, yeah,
What
that kind
keeps
of
you
stuff.
on the
It's,
outside of most
mm-hmm,
supermarkets? Because most supermarkets are set up with your produce
mm-hmm,
area on one outskirt. Your butcher slash meat area is usually on an
mm-hmm.
outskirt of a
Yep.
perimeter.
Yeah. Keeps you right in that little section. At
Yeah.
my store, there's a bakery in between those two things. So I have to stave myself as I'm walking past delicious croissants and donuts and all the sweet things. It's funny because I like the smell of those things a lot, but when I eat them, it's not as like satisfying for me. The smell
Oh,
is
lame.
much more satisfying. Hmm.
Super lame.
Super lame. So should we talk about plant-based diets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have never been a sole plant-based diet eater at any point, in
Hmm.
the sense of like I eat vegetarian food and I've eaten vegan food, but I've never been like, I only eat vegan, vegetarian for like any consistent time period of my life.
I get that. I have been twice. Yeah, I was like, there were two distinct times in my life. One of them was out of necessity. I was 19 and I lived in Hawaii and I couldn't afford meat and I couldn't afford dairy because I was poor. So I ate a lot of mango. I ate a lot of pineapple, lots and lots of fruit that were available. And made it super easy. And then the other time I was a little bit older. I was like probably early 20s, probably like 23 or 24. I had just had my first kiddo and I was looking for a way to lose weight because I was in that mindset. And vegan and vegetarian food, it tends to be low fat, low protein. Like your body, there's not a lot to it. It's a lot of carbs. It's a lot of carbs because you're eating fruits and vegetables. So yeah, which you can lose weight quickly that way. But I was working and I had a new kid and all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't stick with it because the carbohydrate energy is different than protein energy. And it just didn't feel good. I was exhausted all the time.
Well, our body has to have protein in some way. And you can get protein from vegan and vegetarian food, but you have to do it strategically.
Yeah. So I remember using things like nutritional yeast was part of for your B vitamins. I think vitamin B12 or something you can't get when you're vegan vegetarian. But my other like qualm with it was that it ended up being a lot of processed stuff, but like vegan processed stuff. So things like tempeh and tofu and vegan protein bars and that kind of stuff. And something in my mind tells me that I should eat whole foods that are recognizable as foods or ingredients without having to have a list on a box. And that wasn't it for me. Yeah.
Yeah. That can be hard when if you are used to cooking more that way, it's probably a lot easier to be like, I know how to do this easily. But if you are going from a meat-based protein diet and then moving into a diet that needs to find plant-based proteins, you're going to end up like you were, where it's a lot of vegan protein bars and like more processed type of proteins because it's just not something you're used to eating, because you can get your proteins from like lentils and legumes, but it's not how traditionally you tend to see like your foods or your meals.
Yeah. Well, and you can also fall into like Oreos are vegan. Like I could eat all the Oreos I wanted, which is not what my goal was.
This is not my goal, but it works.
It works, I guess. Yeah.
It's true.
I love it.
Yeah. It's also hard because, like I was saying, you have to be very strategic with the way you get your protein. There are certain proteins proteins are made by combining amino acids together, and there are certain amino acids that our body cannot make. Like it's just impossible for you to make them. And a vegan diet makes it difficult to get in all of your amino acids. It's not impossible, it's just much more difficult to do it.
Yeah. And you have to consume a higher quantity, like thinking about the types of foods, especially if you are eating lots of fruits and vegetables and trying to get your protein in, the quantity of food that you're having to consume in order to keep up with your energy needs it's a lot. It's a lot.
Mostly because a lot of fruits and vegetables tend to be lower in calories. So like if you think about it, if you're going to eat starchy vegetables, so you see all the time, so many people say you should switch your spaghetti for zoodles, which is noodles made out of like zucchini, because you eliminate X amount of calories and you eliminate the refinement of the pasta. Okay, great. But if your whole goal is to get in, let's just say 2,000 calories in a day, how many zoodles do you have to eat to get there?
All of them.
Oh my gosh.
Every one of them on the planet.
We kind of mentioned how protein-based diets are really good for like if you're doing high power and explosive type
Mm-hmm.
things. Vegan and
Yeah.
vegetarian diets can really work for anyone in a way.
Yeah.
Not in a way, they can work for anyone. Um, you just have to know how to make them work for you. Because, like I
Mm-hmm.
was stating before, there is amino acids that are missing from specific proteins that you would get from like your vegan diet that
Mm-hmm.
your body just cannot make. One of them is leucine. So you can get it from different sources of vegan proteins. It
Mm-hmm.
just depends on if you're eating the right ones that contain it. So you have to be very mindful of making sure that you're eating
Mm-hmm.
complete, or not complete, because most
Complete
proteins,
proteins. Yeah.
yeah, but most proteins that are vegan and vegetarian friendly are not complete proteins.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that they do not contain all of the amino acids that our body needs.
Yeah. I remember eating a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
beans, refried beans in a tortilla with
Yep.
like vegan cheese, because beans and a tortilla is a complete protein
Together. Yeah.
together. Yeah, the
Beans on their
combination of,
own,
yeah,
probably not a
separately
complete
they're
protein
not.
because it's probably missing an amino acid in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. We've talked about the like how protein is good for bodybuilding and that kind of stuff. There are vegan bodybuilders, there are vegan and vegetarian athletes that
Mm-hmm.
make it work for them. So it is
Yeah.
something that is definitely doable if you are an active person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just have to understand what you're looking for and do a little bit more research and work around it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You just have to be more mindful of what you're eating and planning it out properly,
Mm-hmm.
because it's easy for someone who eats meat to just say, I'll have some chicken breast, and then they don't
Mm-hmm.
have to think at all about their amino acids. Whereas
Yeah.
if you are vegan, you may have to find foods that are
Mm-hmm.
going to make up for the deficits, because maybe
Yeah.
you don't like a specific food, but it contains the deficits you need. So then you need to find something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I agree. I was thinking about what you just said about how you have to be more planful. That was definitely something. Being a vegan or a vegetarian is not something you can just like wing it. It doesn't feel like it feels
Yeah.
like you can't. There are options at restaurants, especially nowadays. I feel like it's a lot more prevalent that there are vegan and vegetarian options at different restaurants. When I was, because this was 15 years ago that I was vegan, and when that was happening, I couldn't go to restaurants because there was not
Mhm.
options, or I was eating like lettuce. And that's not good for me. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more options now. I feel like either because it's easier now for restaurants to do it, or
Mm-hmm.
just because they need to cater to larger audiences, because so many people are now vegan
Mm-hmm.
or not glucose,
Gluten free.
thank you, gluten free,
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, oh, I won't be eating any of this. How do you sell it? So they need to have it
Mm-hmm.
already in their menu so that they can do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. We didn't even touch on gluten free as a diet, and I think that
we
that is
did
for the
not.
better. Yeah,
Well,
it was like,
I'm
mm-hmm.
not going to plan my entire eating diet around gluten free because I do not
Mm-hmm.
have a need to be gluten free.
Mm-hmm.
My sister in law is allergic to gluten. This is not
Yeah,
something that she can eat because it's bad for her body. It's not just like,
bad.
oh, I
Yeah.
get a little bit of tummy upset. Like, no, it's not good for her.
Yeah.
And therefore she needs to be gluten-free diet. But I feel like gluten-free has been taken over by
Mm-hmm.
a lot of social media, but it became this big like buzzword.
I agree. I was gonna say probably like 6 or 8 years ago, I would say, is when I started noticing the boom in the gluten free, and it was one of those things where the I had never even heard the word gluten before, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was everywhere, and everybody was like, "I'm gluten free" or "I'm allergic to gluten," and I was like, "But I just saw you eating bread." Until it was a buzzword. Like, what happened?
Exactly.
Yeah.
My favorite was seeing like foods now advertising themselves as gluten free,
Uh-huh.
like this is gluten-free ice cream. And it's like, yeah, no shit, it's gluten-free
Why
vanilla
would that
ice cream.
have gluten? Yeah, I remember those moments of like like a hard cider. I turned it around and it said gluten-free, and I was like, why would this have gluten in it? What?
Why?
Yeah.
Now, do not get me wrong. I am not mad about the fact that there are options for people who need gluten-free. Again, for people who are of that need, it is great to know that they have a wide variety of foods and beverages and things that they can drink. I just think that it got corrupted by corporations and things for money. And then the social media aspect of it took it over to be like, oh, it's this buzzword thing, and everybody's going to look at me now because I'm gluten-free.
Agreed. This is off topic, but it's kind of happening right now with Ozempic, with the weight loss drug.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. People that are actually in need of it, have a medical need for this medicine, are not able to get it because people are using it as a weight loss drug. And it's an interesting situation that is happening right now.
We see nothing about that over here because they don't advertise drugs on TV or
that
in
would
media.
be so nice. What a thing
It's
that
really
we
weird.
have here in the US, like that drug advertisements, ask your doctor about blah blah blah, and I'm like,
no, crazy.
What?
Since we're on this aside, let me just go down this whole like advertisement weird things. So every now and then I need to VPN back into American media because I want to watch a specific TV show. So I was just telling Heather I'm currently watching Geography of Bliss on Peacock. It's only on Peacock to my knowledge, so I have to use my VPN to get in to go watch it. And because it's on Peacock, it has commercials, and so they're American commercials, and it's like Ford truck or or it'll be like random drug commercial, and I'm just like, what is happening? Because the commercials I see when I'm not VPN'd in are like order on takeaway, which is like Uber Eats or DoorDash.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That. And I'm just like, what? Why is the difference in these commercials?
Yes.
Don't forget to order your food from takeaway. Buy a truck.
Oh my gosh. It's because your country is not controlled by big pharma.
The other really funny one.
Saying.
The other really funny one that has nothing to do with advertisement was when whatever the recent hurricane was that hit Florida this last year. We were watching CNN with our neighbor who is fully Belgium, and he was like, I do not understand this. Somebody explain this to me. Why is this woman standing outside in the hurricane reporting on the weather? Go inside, you stupid woman. She's like taking up like shelter in the parking garage because the winds are so strong and things are blowing away, and he's like, go inside.
It's true because it has to be the most sensational. It has to be the most. That's American culture. It has to be the most, the best, the biggest, the loudest.
And then he pointed out the wind gauge at the bottom of the screen that kept going like this to be like heavy winds, and we started really watching it, and it is nonsense. It was just a pattern. It would go up to the top, then come back about 25%, then go back to the top, and then go down about 40%, then repeat the pattern.
It's over and over. Oh my god.
We were just like, wait a minute. This is clearly not real wind because real wind doesn't do that.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's like it's full blown or
it was so
in
funny.
between. Oh my god.
All right.
Oh, America. I
love you, but I don't.
I love you, but I don't.
So yeah,
oh
gluten free.
Gluten free. Good shit. We got so off there. I love it. I love it so much. Okay.
I guess we could talk about high carb diets in the sense of like training for it. I'm sure there are probably people who eat super high carb diet. Well, they're not super healthy.
Yeah.
chips and pasta and all the things. Just eat only carbs. But if you are doing like long distance or endurance racing, or not even racing, just like exercise or
Mm-hmm.
a movement that requires you to be active for super long periods of time. So, in
Yeah.
your example of coming over to France and walking everywhere every day, like I
Everywhere.
walked a half marathon every single day I was here. What the heck?
Yeah. That was
You
wild.
need energy for that. And it needs to be stuff that's readily available for you in a way. And so,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of athletes and people who train for these longer endurance type stuff tend to eat more high carb because they need to be able to store that energy in their muscles
Mm-hmm.
and in their bloodstream and then have it readily available to them when they need it so that they can
Mm-hmm.
continue their efforts. They don't have the time for their body to click over into now burning fat because
Mm-hmm.
that time period of going, oh, I'm out of carbs and now I need to burn fat is
Mm-hmm.
probably the time period where they've now gone, okay, I'm out of energy, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Bonk.
Yes.
If you know the
Bonk,
word
hit that
bonk,
wall.
it's not a
Yeah.
fun wall. Don't hit it.
No.
And
Nope,
so we
nope, nope.
eat a lot of carbs.
Yeah. We talked about when I was pregnant, I called it the pasta nap, which was my favorite thing. But I would work all day long, really hard. I worked at Starbucks and I was on my feet for 8 hours a day. I was pregnant with twins. I remember this time specifically. I was pregnant with twins on my feet for 8 hours as a store manager, managing a crew of however many people, 25 people, and running to keep the business going. And then I would get off of work and I would hit that wall, and so I would eat as much pasta as my body would let me take in. And then I would take a nap because I didn't have any energy present
Best.
to continue going. But I needed, so I would just load up on carbohydrates because I was like, when I wake up from this nap, I'm going to need to be able to do stuff. So I would load up, take a nap, and then get up and do life. But that
Yeah.
pasta nap is the best. You go like down. It's a deep, deep sleep in the pasta nap. Oh,
Yeah, I
so
bet.
good.
Well, it's literally
Yep.
like the concept of carbo loading, where
Yeah.
you ate all of these carbs and now you're giving your body time to load them all up so that you can go do your effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we should briefly talk about high fat diets because it's not
Yeah.
really a diet. It's like, I think that it's super important. So, the two main things that we eat on a regular basis that are fueling for our bodies are protein and carbohydrates. Those are the energy that we need. There is a place for increasing fat in your diet. So, for example, if you are weightlifting, so I know this for myself, it's something I pay attention to. If I'm weightlifting, my protein levels are where they need to be. I'm eating carbohydrates within my specific range, but I'm finding myself tired, then I can add some fats as a sustainable
Mm-hmm.
energy source over the long term. But in general, when you eat a high fat diet, it's not great for you. Like,
Yeah.
especially if your protein is low or your carbohydrates. Oftentimes, high fat and high carbohydrates go hand in hand, is typically what I see. But that would be, I think, the standard American diet, which
Mm.
is the acronym for that is called SAD. So just so you're aware, the standard American diet is a little bit sad. It's lots of it's lots of processed foods, processed grains, that kind of stuff. Simple carbohydrates, and then high fat. Things like
Mm-hmm.
oils, butters, all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great for you.
Yeah. But it's also avocados and
Mm-hmm.
nuts, I think, fall into it a little bit. They have fats in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there
Yeah.
are good fats that you can
Yes.
add in there. So it's not like high fat diets are all, well, they are. For the most part, people who are eating only fat, like high fat diets, are not eating super, super great. But like
Yeah.
you
I
could
know
be
that I eat
overeating
a
on some of them.
yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I know that I eat probably more fat. So we talked about like I eat eggs in the morning. Today I had eggs
Mm-hmm.
and avocado toast and a lot of bacon. All of those things would be fat dense, but they're also protein dense in some parts of it. So those things together I think there's a specific ratio. I know my friend Alex, who's a nutritionist, she talks about like having a ratio of fat to protein content in your diet and how it's important. I don't know what those numbers are, so you can reach out to her or to Nikki that we've talked to. But yeah.
Well, we've also talked about how fat is necessary for your diet because it helps you absorb fat soluble vitamins, which you need in your body. It helps you maintain healthy hair and skin.
And hormone regulation.
Like there is definitely a lot of reasons why we still need to eat fat. So we can't just cut it out of our diets.
No. That is one thing that I will say about diet plans. Like, so there was a boom in the 80s and 90s of low fat, no fat that happened. And there is a direct correlation that you can see of type 2 diabetes tracks right along with those. As those numbers went up, then type 2 diabetes went up. And so it's something that I feel like we've moved away from. There's less products that are low fat, no fat available now, which is really good. And typically the diets that I hear about, it is not something that is being cut out completely. Like people are recognizing that even on a diet, you still need those fats.
Yeah. Well, because when they cut out those fats from the foods, the food then tastes terrible because if you cook meat, you know that the more flavorful meats are generally the ones that have more fat in them because that's where the flavor comes from. Or you add butter and that's where the flavor is for this food. And when you take all of it out, you've now got this bland piece of food. So how do you make it taste better? Well, most of them added sugar.
Yep. Straight up,
just we'll add sugar. People like sugar.
Yeah.
So how do I choose the right plan for myself?
That is, you and I have both given kind of our takes on it. Just talking about kind of our lifestyles specifically and what that looks like. For people that are beginning a fitness routine, this is going to look a little bit different. So I think that you have to account for the activity level that you are. And something that is shown in the data is that when people are tracking their calories and they're tracking their exercise, they tend to overinflate the amount of activity that they do and deflate the amount of energy that they are taking in. And so oftentimes this gap in those numbers is where people are like, I'm doing everything and I'm not losing weight. And it's like, okay, but are you tracking accurately? So, so I think it's super important to have an understanding, but just being aware of what you're taking into your body, how much energy you're spending, how you're feeling in your body. Those are some key things to start with when you're thinking about adjusting your diet. And then I honestly recommend talking to a nutritionist. Maybe not having a coach that stays with you for months and months at a time if that's not something you're looking for. But if you are looking to adjust your diet, talking to your doctor is a great place to start, especially if you have any health issues that are going on. And then talking to somebody who has a depth of knowledge about nutrition and can talk to you about the foods that you like, that you don't like, what you're willing to adjust, what you're not willing to give up, those sorts of things. They're really, really helpful for that.
Yes. Hugely helpful, especially if, like we mentioned before, if you're going to want to go down a vegetarian or a vegan route, a dietitian is going to be able to help you complete your diet. So you get your complete proteins and you make sure that you're eating everything so that you can still be healthy and not deficient in some sort of vitamins or amino acids or whatever it is that you're trying to, not be deficient in.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Cool. I think the overall theme of what we've talked about today, and this seems to be the theme a lot with the content that we create and our podcast episodes and that kind of stuff, is it really comes down to paying attention to your body, what your body is signaling you for, listening to those cues, spending time with yourself, getting to know how you feel in general. And then when you adjust something, taking the time to really acknowledge those feelings in your body, that's where the work is. And that's where you change your habits and you change your life.
Yeah.
inspirational quote of the day.
Write it down, stick it on the wall.
Change your habits, change your life. I love it. Stick it on the wall. Oh my gosh.
Love it.
Yeah. What a great way to end.
Yay.
Thanks for joining us today at Race to Wellness. We hope you found it both fun and informative. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can visit savagehealthllc.com and make a donation on the Race to Wellness page. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our next episode.
We love hearing from you, so feel free to ask us any questions or leave us a comment down below. You can click on the links in the description to follow us on social media, or simply send us an email at racetowellness2023@gmail.com.